obviously there was a part in me throughout my whole swimming career that knew I wanted to be swimming. But sometimes I felt like I lost that piece. And that's when training would get really difficult. You've got to be willing to try things, but also at the same time, know who you are and what you need. And don't accept any less than that. There are so many different sides and colourful parts of your personality which you can explore. Yeah, swimming's been a big part of my life and I'm proud of it. I was always very aware of the fact that I'm not going to be swimming for my whole life. So that's why I've got my university degrees. That's why I've been trying to be a voice for change and having these conversations because I have further aspirations outside of the swimming pool. I'm a big believer of make things easier for your future self. Just keep giving and taking from the present and from the future to make it work. Never really thought I could achieve that or could get to an Olympic Games. So to get there was obviously career defining for me. I like my lasting impact to be people trusting that they can try something new and give it a go.
Hey, welcome to the Leaders Podcast with me, Laura MacDonald, the leadership coach and mentor. Come with me as I explore the elements of leadership that give leaders like you the power and confidence to make the impact you know you can. I'll be sharing my own experiences, top tips and insights, and talking to some very special guests to share their thoughts and leadership experiences on mindset, influence, change, and growth. So let's get right to it. This time round, I've invited the inspirational Alice Deering to join me, former 10-kilometre World Junior Open Water Champion, Team GB Olympic marathon swimmer, founder of Swim With Your Meaning, co-founder of the Black Swimming Association, broadcaster, presenter, and motivational speaker. Welcome to the Leaders Podcast, Alice.
Hey, thanks for having me.
No problem. Now, I've just read out quite a list there, so before we get into that, because there is more, I wanted to share with you that I'm on a bit of a mission at the moment to help leaders serve others better by serving themselves and by sharing all the ways that they can do that. So I have a question for you, which also ties nicely into some of our discussion today, and every guest gets asked this as well. What have you done to serve yourself in the last 24 hours?
Oh, I love that. To serve myself in the last 24 hours, I have gone to the gym, took some time in the sauna, in the steam room afterwards, and just kind of like doing what makes me feel good, and that's moving and looking after my body and pampering myself in some way. And I do think you need to find time for that every day if you can. It might not always be going to the gym, it isn't always. Sometimes it's playing video games or eating something that I really like or something like that. Just little ways that you can keep your being happy, and that's like a multitude of different ways you can do that.
You mentioned video games the other day while we were talking about this
Yes.
episode. What kind of video games do you play?
Oh, I've played quite a range. So I'm normally into RPGs, so role-playing games. So I've played like hundreds of hours of Persona 5, Witcher 3. Um, I always go blank. I've played a lot of Overwatch, and I'm like currently into Power World and TFT, which is Team Fortress Tactics. It's a League of Legends offshoot. So like it's kind of all over the place, to be honest. A little bit of this, a little bit of that. Whatever's popular normally, especially in the
Yeah.
RPG world, yeah.
Oh, definitely. I have to admit, I'm a bit more of a traditional route when it comes to video games. I have like Mario Kart Tour on my phone.
Classic. Love.
I play that every day without fail. But yeah, racing games are my thing. I like, Gran Turismo
Okay.
and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, hmm. Bit more of a, I
Yeah.
don't know, maybe it's just I've not quite got the type of strategic thinking that you need for certain role-playing games.
It is different, yeah, but sorry, racing games are very technical, like a lot of quick reaction times and just knowing what to press and when. I've just never been really good at those ones, and I don't really have the patience for it. So yeah, I personally need a story to like drive me through a game most of the time. But I do respect the racing games because there is a knack and a skill to it which I don't possess.
I think part of it actually comes from an experience that my dad bought me. I think it was for my like the 23rd birthday or something. And he took me for one of those like supercar driving experiences.
fun.
So you get like an actual instructor with you there in the car, and they're
Yeah.
teaching you how you actually go round a course. Do you know what I mean? How you approach corners
Yes.
and all this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And I took a lot of that into the racing games, and I'm much better at them now. So
Oh, that's so cool. I love that. You have to pass on the
yeah, it was
tip.
pretty cool. And I got a bit lucky as well because the first car was a Ferrari. And so they record it, like they do a video of you as you go round. And the first time we went round, it didn't work. So, so they were like, "Do you want to go again?" I was like, "Yes."
Yes,
That was a good experience. But no, yeah, good to hear what kind of video games you experience. I'm sure there's some recommendations out there for people to try who like
absolutely. Yeah.
similar things.
Things to speak about video games.
Definitely. Lovely ways to serve yourself. I love it. Brilliant. Thank you for sharing that. So, first things first, I just wanted to go through some facts about you because
Mhm.
you have made some incredible achievements in your life so far. And when I was writing this list, I have to say I was a little bit overwhelmed. So, you have competed in 3 world championships. You took the bronze medal in 2015 and you were the 10-kilometer world junior open water champion in 2016. You're a Team GB Olympian and you competed at the 2020 Tokyo Olympics. You were the first black female British swimmer at the Olympics. You're the founder of Swim With Your Meaning and you co-founded the Black Swimming Association. You're an ambassador for the British Elite Athletes Association. You're a global diversity and change advocate, using your broadcasting, presenting, and motivational skills to support the creation of projects like Aquaphobia, the
Mhm.
Sky documentary aimed at breaking down the myths, stereotypes, and barriers on Black and Asian people learning to swim. Your advocacy has led you to be named as the 2022 Sunday Times Changemaker of the Year, and you also received the Sky Kick It Out Award for Equality and Inclusion in Sport at the British Sport Awards. You were then named on the BBC Women's Hour Power List in 2023 for game-changing contribution to women in sport. And you did most of that while studying for your degree in politics and your master's degree in social media and political communication at Loughborough University. And you're only 27. I was
Yeah.
exhausted just reading
Oh,
that list. Like, how do you feel when you hear all of that about you?
yeah. It's weird because half the time I'm like, oh, you're not doing anything out of this. And then yeah, I hear it all and I'm like, oh, okay, it's been quite a lot. And it's been over a fairly short amount of time because I only started speaking about these issues or getting any kind of attention on myself and my story in 2019. So it's been quite compact. Like it's been a whirlwind few years. I've loved it all. It's been great. But yeah, it's weird hearing it all read out loud because obviously things come in stages and you're just like, okay, that's cool, do the next thing. And yeah, but hopefully got a lot more to come, you know. That's how I like to see it. Keep trying to build on things, keep improving in whatever ways I can.
Oh, definitely. I think this is just the beginning for you. If you can do all of that in such a short period of time, I think you're absolutely fine going forward. You said like a lot of the advocacy stuff and things have only sort of started in the last few years. Was it driven by your career or was it driven by what people were bringing to your attention about what you were doing and how you were impacting, or was it just your own kind of personal motivations about I need to make a difference here?
It was my personal motivation. I first told my story Aldem, which unfortunately doesn't exist anymore. I think it kind of dissolved in maybe 2024, 2023. I can't remember when, but it was a magazine for women of color, basically. It's for women of color to tell their stories. And they were commissioning pieces. And I thought no one really knew about my story. No one was talking about really Black people in swimming that much. There were people doing bits, but all separately. And this is how we came to found the Black Swimming Association, is all of those people coming together to use our collective voices for that charity. But I thought this is a great opportunity for me to get £50 and tell my story. And I thought it's just something I felt like I needed to do. And if people cared, great. I'd keep moving with it. But if they didn't, I'd be like, at least I tried. I've put something out there. I might have encouraged one more person to learn how to swim, and I'd be happy with that. And I wrote the piece, and it ended up getting like into certain circles in certain places. My agent found me because of that piece, who I work with now, and it just kind of took off from there. It wasn't like a meteoric, like viral moment. It was like a steady progression thing where I started to get like the Telegraph, the Times, BBC all interested in my story. And I kind of took it stage by stage in terms of speaking to them and learning how I wanted to tell my story. And that was one thing that I really kind of had to navigate. But I'm very happy that I did. Obviously, it was something that I felt like I needed to do. I wanted to make some kind of positive change to my sport. I could see things were moving forward in terms of the diversity and inclusion of Black and Asian people within competitive swimming, but I didn't think it was moving quick enough. And I thought, I'm in a great position. It's the eve of the Olympic Games. I've got a chance of making it. Here's a great opportunity to use my platform and my potential for some good. And it has turned out well. Yeah, I think so anyway.
Swimming has been pretty much in your whole life,
Yeah.
and you get to the level that you got to takes what I think all Olympians have in them, isn't it? Which is this deep-rooted competitor.
Yes.
This drive and desire to succeed, this motivation to,
Absolutely.
get in the
Yeah.
pool every single day and go and train.
Keep going.
Absolutely. But was there ever a time where your love of swimming was challenged in any way?
Oh yeah, multiple times, multiple. Quite a lot of the time I really didn't like it. And I'm really honest about this because I think I'd be doing myself a disservice if I was, now that I've finished competing, if I was here like, oh yeah, I loved like every second of it. It was all fun. I really enjoyed training. It was exactly where I wanted to be every time. It's not the truth at all. Obviously, there was a part in me throughout my whole swimming career that knew I wanted to be swimming. But sometimes I felt like I lost that piece. And that's when training would get really difficult and I would kind of have no vision of like how to get through this. There's two major times it happened to me. The first time was when I was 19 years old, or just turning 20 years old, and I really wasn't enjoying training and wasn't racing well either. It was like a double whammy where I didn't race well, so I wouldn't train well, etc. Just a cycle going round. And it led to me getting kicked out of the training group that I was in and kind of kicked off of funding as well. So kicked out of that training group, kicked off of funding. And those were the two things which I kind of held dear to myself to tell myself that I am a good swimmer and that I based my self-worth on as an athlete. And I had those two things taken away from me within half an hour phone calls of each other. And I honestly didn't know what to do. I was in my starting my third year of university at the time. And I thought, why don't I just get through my year of university, move on and move on with my life, basically. This might be the end of it. Like what else is there to do? And for some reason, I got back into swimming. I don't really know how. I think I just needed some headspace. So I went to swim by myself a couple times and I really enjoyed it. I was like, okay, I'm not done yet. Like I don't want to go out like this. This isn't how I imagined finishing my career. And I moved into the university training group at Loughborough University and ended up finding it so much nicer for my mind and ended up thriving in there, to be honest. It was an environment which suited me a lot better as opposed to the national centre environment, which I'd been kicked out of. And I just ended up thriving. I got back onto funding later, like that season, ended up going to the World Championships the year after and then qualifying for the Olympic Games. Well, 2 years after that. It should have been 1 year, but 2 years as because of COVID. So it was a period of time that I just knew that I needed to get back into it and I wasn't done. And a similar thing happened in 2022 where I was really hating swimming, like the most I'd ever hated it, and really couldn't see a way through at all. Went and spoke to my coach, and he said, why don't you just take some time off? It's really rare for that to happen in sport, and let alone a sport like this. It's so technique based and feel based. Like you really need to be in the water daily, pretty much, to keep that sensation and keep your strength and aerobic base up. And he ended up saying, why don't you just take off until like September? It was like late April, early May at the time. It's a really long time out. And I was like, okay, yeah, let's try it. Honestly, wasn't sure if I was going to come back when I said yes. And then it was like a light switch coming on in my head about 3 weeks into my break. I was like, no, I'm definitely going back because I want to know if I'm good enough or I want to try and make the Olympic Games for Paris. And that was the only thing I honestly cared about is trying to qualify for Paris. So I tried, I went back in. It didn't work out for me. And I'm totally fine with that. It was one of those things that it just wasn't my day for the competition when I was competing at the end of 2023. I just got I had a poor race. I ended up getting out of the race early, to be honest, because it was going that badly. And I knew that I was done, that I was like, I don't need to finish this race. I don't need to prove to myself that I can swim 10K. I already know that. But what else am I going to gain from this? So I got out of the race early, and that was the end of my swimming career. And it was actually the only race that I have ever gotten out of, which is like a bit of a weird bittersweet in a sense. I felt like I was really taking my career into my own hands, which is something that I've always promised myself I would do. I didn't ever want to blame a performance on a coach or another swimmer or something like that. I always wanted to take ownership and accountability for my career and my results. And that's something that I've tried to keep consistent throughout a number of years. So that's like a big breakdown of like, I've been through a lot of the highs and lows. I've mainly spoken about the lows there, obviously, but it's it's always been challenging, but I've kind of always found my way back to it and enjoyed it even more when I've had those lows. So yeah, swimming's been a big part of my life and I'm proud of it.
I can't imagine that it's. I don't think any athlete has that kind of perfect career where everything's happy and totally motivated and perfectly engaged all the time. Everybody has down days, right? Because you're a human being. You know,
Absolutely.
you are not going to wake up every single morning and think, "Yes, I'm on it today." You know, there are going to be
Yes,
days where you're like, "Nah, not today." Just give me a cup of tea and my bed sheet and I'm
yeah,
happy. Like
exactly.
You mentioned obviously the transfer to the Loughborough team. What was the difference? Because you said the environment was different and much more suited to you. What was kind of like the key factor that made it so much better for you?
There was less pressure there. So in the National Training Centre, as you can probably imagine, there's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of pressure on training. And I was never the best trainer, to be honest. I was quite often lazy, could be disinterested sometimes, especially when I was younger, especially as a teenager and adolescent, still trying to figure out where I fit in the sport. How long do I realistically actually want to do this for? And it would reflect that in training. So, and the one thing that always kind of kept me going was the fact that I was just fiercely competitive. So when I do get into races, I'm willing to fight and put it out there and give it a go. But I can never, as a child or a teenager, find that effort in training. And that was kind of telling in the National Centre. So it's a place where your training is monitored, like it's checked up on, you're held accountable for what you're doing. And it didn't suit me. It just honestly didn't suit me. I'm not one of those people that can cope with that constant pressure because I overthink. And I needed somewhere that, it's sad that I didn't know this at the time. I didn't realize this at the time. I was kind of suggested to go to the university squad, and I said no because I felt like it was an admission of defeat. Because I was like, no, I should be in here. I want to be one of the better swimmers. This is what's right for me. But I couldn't see that it wasn't working for me. And so this decision was made for me. I was obviously like heartbroken at the time, but ended up being like the best decision of my career, or best like forced decision of my career, I should say. I moved into a training group where there's just less pressure. You know, if I had a bad training session, it didn't feel like the end of the world. It was just kind of like, okay, what's wrong? We can like next session, take it easier. We'll figure it out. And I had a coach that I felt comfortable telling him what I needed, if that makes sense. So in the National Centre, I didn't really find my voice, to be honest. And I'm quite an opinionated person, know what I want and I know what I need. But I didn't feel comfortable expressing that in the National Centre because I was scared that if I said what I want, that I would get kicked out. So it's kind of ended up being like a funny, like, if I'd expressed what I needed, it would have been okay. But because I didn't feel comfortable in doing so, it ended up being kind of an issue. But ended like it's fine. There was no bad blood there at all. It's just it wasn't right for me. So moving into the university squad, working with a coach that was willing to try something new and try a completely different training model with me because I've been doing these long, hard meters for so many years as a teenager. And then when I moved in there, we tried something different where my meters were a lot less and it ended up suiting me really well because I was a lot happier and was able to commit to every session that I turned up to instead of committing to 3 out of the 10 sessions in the week, which is how I'd been operating before. So I make it sound like I'm really lazy. It's obviously not that, but I know like I know what my mind needs. And sometimes the training, my mind just couldn't cope with it. My body could have been in the best place ever, but my mind would see like 8K written down on a piece of paper. It's a Thursday afternoon. I've already swam 50 to 60K this week, and I have 4 more sessions to go. And start to overthink it and tell myself I'm tired, that I can't do this. And I really needed somewhere that would kind of take that pressure off of me. And I did find that, thankfully.
Absolutely. And I think, I mean, I live here in Loughborough, so obviously I'm
Mm.
familiar with the university and,
Yeah,
you know, and what they do. And every single Olympics, they do produce a huge chunk of the team, don't
absolutely.
they? And
Mhm.
they were even confident enough. I don't know if they've done this at other Olympic Games, but when Paris came around, Loughborough was obviously publishing the medals table
Yeah, yeah.
every day, and they put Loughborough University in there as a country, and I think it took quite a few days for them to get out of the top six. So, you know, so it's yeah, it's I can see why you sort of say, you know, actually it was the best forced decision of your career because actually
Yeah,
it's they must be doing something right. Do you know what I
absolutely.
mean? To be able to
That's,
produce people that not just go there, but can
yeah,
win
but
medals, you
exactly.
know. So it must have been a hell of a move to make. But it sounds like they've
Mhm.
got a really great environment. And being,
It
you know, the
is.
sports focused university they are, they're
Yeah,
obviously doing,
definitely.
you know, quite a lot. So yeah,
Yeah, this is the
that's
thing.
brilliant.
It is, or like, there's something there for everyone, especially in the swimming. So, like I said, the national centre didn't work for me, but that works brilliantly for some people. But the university squad worked better for me, and there are other swimmers who it's actually worked better for as well, and then vice versa. They haven't liked the uni squad, and they've gone to national centre and excelled in there. So, I think it's really important in any walk of life or any industry of just knowing that there are different ways to get the same result. And, if that had been the only choice for me to be in the national centre and I just ended up quitting because of it, it wouldn't have been right for me as an athlete. And I've been able to move into another squad, get the attention and the things that I needed myself personally and excel from it. So it's not that one place is better than the other. It's really personal and really whatever's suited to a person and to an athlete. And the fact that at Loughborough we've been able to have those two, or in some cases, three different routes for athletes to explore is really important.
Definitely. I mean, I talk about it a lot with, you know, with learners, with clients, all this sort of thing about the
Mhm.
different types of motivation. Some people are really driven by that kind of competitive, like let's drill it up to, you know, who can attend the most sessions kind of thing, you know.
Yeah.
And other people are really driven by things like simple things like feedback, like just being able to have that regular conversation, that really honest conversation about what's going well, where can we improve, and really taking the time, like you say, to just slow down, take the next training
Yeah.
session a little bit easier, break it all down, figure out where the problem is,
Mhm.
and go again. And it is about finding that place, isn't it, that you feel like, you know what, the culture here is right for me,
Yeah,
you know.
that's the word, the culture, yeah. Because there are so many different kind of cultures which are fostered in different programs across the country. Some of them you can just tell from the outside it's not for you. And then some of them you're like, oh, that's not actually for me. Then you get in and give it a go and you see and you're actually like, oh, it's okay. So you've got to be willing to try things, but also at the same time, know who you are and what you need. And don't accept any less than that. And it sounds really difficult. Obviously, sometimes you've got to sacrifice, you have to be flexible, but know where your flexibility is to a breaking point of actually this is going to be detrimental to my performance or to my career. And there is a fine line to balance. Sometimes it won't always work out. And I think that's the rough thing about sport is that you don't have a lot of time to figure this out. Like you said, I'm 27 years old. It's not old by any means, but even still, like every year I felt like, oh my gosh, I'm getting older and like I need to I need to have this all figured out now. And you kind of do by the time of 18 being an athlete, you really do have to have, especially in swimming, you kind of have to have that plan because you might have two Olympic cycles in you, which is 8 years. So that would take you to 26. And that's good going. But it's and within that you don't want to risk moving training programs in case it doesn't work out for you because that's a year wasted or 2 years wasted. So anyway, I'm rambling, but I think there's quite a bit of luck and right timing involved with some of these things. But also you really have to commit to what you're doing and trust what you're doing is right.
when we spoke about this, I asked you what's the kind of key message that you can give all leaders listening to this, and you said, and I quote, invest in other parts of your life, not just your career. How has that looked for you, and when have you needed it the most?
Yeah, okay. So I'm going to take this back to GCSEs for a sec. So when I was making my GCSE choices, I purposefully didn't pick PE because, or like physical education. I purposely didn't pick it because I didn't want to do anything sport related at university. And I knew if I picked it for PE, for GCSE, sorry, that I would get probably an A star without being cocky, but all of the stuff that they spoke about in PE and pretty much every swimmer got an A star. So I knew I would have got that. And then I would have gone, oh, why don't I just do it at A levels? Because if I do so well there, it'll be an easy A level for me. So I kind of took this initiative from as like 14 years old or whenever you pick GCSEs that I didn't want to do this at university because I wanted to have something else to me besides swimming. Didn't know what it was at the time, was going to figure it out as I went, but I knew that I didn't want to go to university and do sports science or physiotherapy or something like that. I knew that wasn't for me. And I ended up going to university and studying politics and then doing a master's in social media and political communication, both at Loughborough University. And that was kind of the extra thing to my career that I felt like I really needed and needed to invest into for a multitude of reasons. What the main one was I was very scared of relying on swimming to earn me money and to be a career which I could actually call a career one day. And I just didn't know if it would happen for me. Like I wasn't breaking records or I wasn't winning world championships. So there wasn't any sense to fully go, let's just go full pelt. Let's forget my university education. Let's just put everything into swimming. And secondly, I knew I needed something else alongside my career to distract myself because I do overthink and I need a kind of a continual sense of achievement. So say if I've had a bad session, I would kind of have a bad session, but then I'd go home and do some coursework or practice for an exam or something. And that would give me like, okay, Alice, it's actually not that bad. Like, here's some perspective on life that you had a bad session, but it's really not the end of the world. You have other things to look for too. And I think that's a probably the biggest part of me investing in outside of my swimming career. There are, of course, other things that I've been really fortunate to be able to do, like co-founding the Black Swimming Association and founding SWYM and working with all of these amazing brands and organizations that I've been able to work with. But I suppose they're more closely tied to the swimming career, but something completely away from it is my university degrees, which I'm really proud to have gotten. And then they're kind of like my plan Z. If everything goes poorly, I'd be like, at least I've got my degrees. I can figure out a decent job from that. Yeah.
Yeah, and to be honest, I mean, it's you talked about like 'cause obviously part of your masters was social communication as well. I can't imagine that that's not being used at all right
Yes,
now. So,
yeah,
so
exactly. Yeah.
it is being integrated into your
Yes.
life.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
so yeah, but it's just that investment in something. I like that approach that you thought so far ahead and just thought, you know what, I know I'm good at swimming. I know I'm going to continue to be good at swimming, but you know
Mhm.
what, that's not going to be the be all and end all of me.
Yes.
That's a great approach to
Yeah.
take.
And
And
it can
it's
be quite controversial sometimes,
yeah.
to be honest. I've seen it in sport a lot. It really people question your commitment to the sport when you say things like that. And I've always been very honest about it. Like I'm not going to let anybody take that away from me. I was like, yeah, I'm studying this. I want to have something else to me, and I think that's fine. And I think more athletes should be encouraged to find what that is for them. And for some people, it will be physiotherapy. For some people, it will be sports science. But I just don't think it is for everyone. And I think the sporting degree route is often used as kind of like is seen as an easy option for athletes, but some people hate it. I've seen people drop out of university because of it, and it's unfair on them. It's a disservice to themselves, and I feel like they've been let down by institutions which have encouraged that decision. So, I mean, it might be photography, it might be hair and beauty, it could be anything, but I think it is only fair to allow athletes or anyone, whatever industry that may be in, to just discover something else for themselves. It's not always about the main thing up here. There are so many different sides and colorful parts of your personality which you can explore.
looking back on my own personal decisions, I think that was probably a slight mistake I made on my part. Now, don't get me wrong, I am
Mm.
never going to be a world-class athlete. Even in my prime, I was never going to be a world-class athlete. But I did do long distance running. I played football, I played rugby, I did a bit of basketball, I did all of this stuff in high school. And I chose as a result of that physical education as one of my GCSEs. And
Ah.
I do actually think in a lot of ways it put me off.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah,
'Cause it took the fun
because
out of it.
it took the fun out of it. All I wanted to do was play. All I wanted to do was
Yeah. And then you're
run.
writing about lactate. Like,
Yeah.
I don't need
I was
it.
like, this is possibly the worst. I mean, don't get me wrong, I got a good grade, but in the same breath, it was like, why did I choose this GCSE? I should have never
Yeah.
done that. And from there, my A levels and everything else just dictated exactly that. Was I'm not having anything to do with sport. If I'm going to play, I'm
Oh,
going to do
fair.
it for fun. You
Yeah.
know. So yeah, it can. I suppose it is. Yeah, kind of a mistake that we don't necessarily think we're
Yeah.
making.
It does feel like a natural choice. And for some people it is. And this is my point. I think you have to know, am I choosing this because it's easy and convenient? Or am I choosing this because it's actually what I want to do? And quite a lot of the time, I think people do choose the easy and convenient route. And that is fine. Sometimes you need to make that decision for yourself. But in the long run, it might end up costing you a bit. And I think that's one that, well, with my swimming career, I definitely very rarely chose the easy route doing marathon swimming. It's like it's definitely the hardest swimming event. It's arguably the hardest summer Olympic event. So I definitely never made like easy decisions for myself, but I knew that was how I was going to get good. So the 10K was the event that was going to get me to the Olympics. Wasn't my favorite event, wouldn't have picked it for myself. But if that's going to get me to the Olympic Games, then I'm going to go and do it. So I think it's knowing when you can be lazy and knowing when you need to work. And it's a challenge to figure out that balance. And trust me, I always find time to be lazy, but I've always found time to work as well. So you've got to balance that out sometimes.
Definitely, yes. Which actually brings me nicely on to my next point, because the other thing you said was time to rest.
Mm,
So, from the outside, knowing what you were working on, trying to achieve, studying for, training for, all at the same time, because you weren't just doing everything I've listed earlier either. You were also doing internships at university. You were sponsored by Nike at some point, so
mm,
there was obviously some sort of commitments there too.
mhm.
I can only conclude from an outside perspective that your schedule must have been insane.
Yeah.
So I have to ask, because you said, I'm a real advocate of time for rest.
Yeah.
But with that kind of schedule, how on earth do you find balance or even the time to find balance when you have that much going on?
Yeah, I think organization has always been one of my strong points and time management. And I kind of need to know what I'm doing when, just so I know when I can be lazy. So I'm still taking it into my life now. I'm kind of like, okay, you've got time in this period, you've got these 20 minutes to be lazy, or in those 20 minutes, you can sort out some housework and then have a longer period to be lazy later on. And that kind of the way I think. I'm like, let's do things now in the present to make future Alice's life easier. And then it's just like a constant like rolling through of that. So managing my schedule at university, coursework, for example, I was never just doing it the night before. I would write maybe 300 words a day over like 3 weeks and just chunk it up like that. And some days it would end up having to be 900 words, other days it was zero. It was just basically like, if I feel like doing it now, I'll do it now. If I don't feel like doing it now, I'm not going to force myself. And I never want to be in a position where I don't feel like doing it now and I have to force myself to do it. Of course, sometimes that's very different with swimming. And it was difficult to accept that with swimming for a while. I'm not going to lie, because training's when training is, racing is when racing is. I can't dictate that. I have to accept that we have to train at this time and have to race at this time. So because of that, other parts of my life I've tried to control as much as possible. And it wasn't to the point of like I knew what I was doing minute by minute or something like that. It's just having like a general overview of my week and trusting that I've got a deadline on Friday. and I aim to have it finished by Wednesday. So if I do feel lazy on Wednesday, I have another day to do it. So little things like that of just building pockets of space in to protect myself. So yeah, I remember I fondly enjoyed university, to be honest. Like I didn't go out much. I didn't have a normal university experience, as you can imagine. I can probably count on two hands how many times I went out. But I really enjoyed learning, and the challenge of being a student athlete was a really cool thing for me. And finding time to go to photo shoots and do my university degree and everything, it was all part of the fun. And at times, yes, I was exhausted. The funniest one that I think I did was I attended a dinner in London. It was a Vogue Voices for Change dinner, and it was with these like superstar celebrities, like Eva Longoria was in the room. Victoria Beckham walked past us. I shook Naomi Campbell's hand. Sorry, I'm just name dropping now, but like literally like mind-blowingly amazing. And immediately after I left, I didn't go to the after party. I went back up to Loughborough. They had a taxi for me. I slept in the taxi. I woke up the next morning and I went training. And I say the next morning, I had like 4 hours sleep and I went training. And I still had like my hair and makeup done from the event. And I was trying to figure out how I'd get a swimming hat on over this hair. Like it was just a really crazy, surreal experience. But it was one of those things where like I'm going to this party, but I'm also going training. So how do we make this work, people? And we made it work. It happened. Like I didn't miss any training. My coach didn't say anything. It was a good time. So yeah, it was basically long-winded way of saying you can organize your life into a way that suits you. I will say I don't have children. I don't have pets. I don't have anyone dependent on me. So I don't have to think about those issues. I only ever have to think about myself and now my fiance. So it's a lot easier to compartmentalize. I'm sure that will change one day and I'll just figure that out again. But I'm a big believer of make things easier for your future self wherever possible. And then you can be lazy then. And then just keep giving and taking from the present and from the future to make it work, basically.
I know what you said about not having any dependence, but the truth is, I have dependence and we still make it work. So, there's
Okay.
still space that we can create for ourselves. So, like me and my wife
Mm.
tend to sort of look at this again every few months and just sort of say, is this actually working?
That's
So, at the moment, the agreement is she gets Monday nights and Saturday mornings to chill, and I get Wednesday nights and Sunday mornings to chill. And if that ever
nice.
stops working or, doesn't work with little
Yeah.
man's schedule or anything like that, then we can change it and adjust it. And we're constantly looking to solve that problem because what works now won't necessarily work in a year,
Hmm.
depending on what he's doing.
Exactly. That's such a
So,
good point.
yeah, so even with dependence, like stuff like that
Mhm.
can absolutely work. You can find a way to do it. You just have to be in the mindset of, okay, let's really understand what's happening and
Yes.
find solutions that could work with that. And we can trial and error. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You don't
Have
have to go, oh yeah,
conversation.
yeah, I've got
Yeah.
it right first time. That doesn't have to exist.
Exactly.
So yeah, I think that's a really, really valid point. Actually, no matter what your circumstances in life, you
Mhm.
you can make time to
Yeah.
rest. You know.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's a big thing. Like find time to rest because you are more than your career always. And I think even if you are resting for the purpose of your career, and it shouldn't ever be for that, you should be resting for yourself because you're a human being which deserves love and self-respect from yourself. But even if you're resting for your career, you rest to help you make your career better. And a lot of times for swimming, I was resting for my career. Like most of the time I was, to be honest. It was always like, okay, I can't do X, Y, and Z because I've got swimming this evening. There's little things like I wouldn't go to the cinema because if I've got swimming that evening, it would tire me out. And I know it sounds really silly, it's just sat in a cinema, but it's just another thing of like self-protection and balance. So yeah, I do think we are capable of it. And if you're listening and you're one of those people that wants to find more time for themselves, please look at finding it and have conversations with the people in your life who can help make that happen. Because there will be people who want to support you with that.
Absolutely. I completely agree. That's a wonderful message to send. And I think it's so important, isn't it, to have that recognition that the decision to change that is actually completely within your control. And you won't always do it alone. In fact, most of the time you won't do it alone. There will always be somebody else that needs to help you figure this
Exactly.
stuff out. But it all starts with you saying, I want to change this. One of the unique components of being an athlete is that you only do it for so long. As you've
Mm,
already said, your career. as a whole is still in the very early years. But like most athletes, you retired from your sport in your 20s. And I have to ask, what did it feel like to say the words "I'm retiring" at 26?
Yeah, I never because I've been in swimming for so long, and the word you hear is retirement. Even from 18, you hear like, oh, he's retired and he's 22. And I never really respected the fact that retirement for the most people means, 50s, 60s, 70s. I never respected that. And it wasn't until my brother-in-law said, like, I said, oh, I think I'll be retiring. I'll retire after Paris, for example. This was quite a few years ago. And he just laughed. And I was like, what's so funny? Like, he was like, retire. And I was like, yeah, that's what it's called. And, and then, like, I actually got the cogs turning. I was like, oh, wait, Alice, like, listen to yourself. Like, you're so in this bubble that you don't really realize, like, what you're saying. And actually, like, I've mulled it over for a good few years, and I was like, I'm not really retiring, am I? Like, I'm not swimming anymore. And I had this big thing with my agent where I was like, I don't want to use the word retirement when I announce my retirement. And I can't remember if I did or not. I really can't remember if I did. I tried to steer away from it as much as possible. I think I was like, I basically said I'm done with competitive swimming because I'm far from done with all of the things and the issues that I'm speaking about. In fact, now I've got more time and energy to dedicate towards them, but I'm just not going to be training 10 times a week or trying to compete for Britain anymore. So yeah, it's a funny, like, coming around to it because I think, well, athletes can be very naive, and very exposed to self-centered, to the sense of, you're trying to get this performance out of yourself. It's very, you're in a bubble, everything's like protected. And so that this kind of mythical word, retirement, you hear someone retiring at 22 from swimming, and I'm like, oh my God, that's young. She could have gone for like another 4 years. She could have been 26. Like, it just, yeah. And then you realize, like, it doesn't make sense, and it's very much its own world.
Yeah, I can imagine. It's great, I think, that you've recognized that actually other people
Mm.
around you heard that word and went, no.
Yeah, literally. I was like, ah. And I was like, oh wait, they're really right. Like, they've got a point. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. It's not quite the same as everybody else, but yeah.
Yeah.
But I suppose, I mean, no matter how you worded it, w were you prepared for what that really meant to step away?
Yeah, it's funny because you obviously fantasize about it a lot. I daydreamed about it a lot. Like, when I'm retired, I'll do this, I'll do that. And I kind of have done that, but um it's it comes so much quicker than you think it will. And I don't unless you've got like a concrete job lined up, or you're definitely going into coaching or something like that. I think for most athletes it's still a shock because you go from every day, I pretty much text my coach nearly every day, physio, S&C coach, all of these people who are on hand ready to reply to you within an hour, being like, how can I help? What can I do? And when you finish swimming, it's not there anymore. Oh, you finished sport, it's not there anymore. And that's fine. It's just the nature of it. That's their job. But it's it can be difficult. And I was always very aware of the fact that I'm not going to swimming for my whole life. So that's why I've got my university degrees. That's why I've been trying to be a voice for change and having these conversations, because I have further aspirations outside of the swimming pool. But for some athletes, you have seen them just kind of go, oh wow, like that the shock hits them. And it can be really challenging. It can be difficult. So in terms of preparation, I think I would say I was very prepared. I was very prepared. And even myself, there were still some days where I was just like, oh my God, what am I doing? Like, this is like, you're useless, like, just kind of getting into my head a little bit and feeling a bit alone, even though I knew I had so many people around me. And that was even, as I would say, I was in like the 99th percentile of preparation for retirement. So for those who kind of stop more abruptly, or haven't been able to nurture other parts of their self, or other aspects of a potential career, I don't really know how they navigate that. And it's something which a lot of organizations are working on. There are quite a few charities because of it, especially in like higher paid sports where I mean, I imagine those paychecks just stop coming like the month after you retire or something crazy like that. So um, I, it's a really difficult area. I'm happy to say that I've had a good experience, and I hope other athletes do too. But it can be quite jarring, definitely.
I'm quite a big football fan. I hear quite a lot from sort of the
Mm.
football world, and you hear former players like Alan Shearer and Gary Neville and David Beckham all speaking about kind of their experience of coming out of playing. Now, obviously, those three in particular all had other things that they've now gone on and done and are still doing in some cases, and they've found other career directions. But it's, yeah, you go from this very strict sort of scheduled training environment, playing games and being competitive and having all these elements that not many other careers offer, do
No.
they? And like you say, to just because especially in high paid sports like football, you are treated as a commodity, aren't you? So
Yeah.
it's once the contract's over, it's like, okay, bye bye.
Yeah.
Where do you go through from there? And it's, yeah, I can imagine that it must be such a shock, no matter what sport you're in, to
Mm.
just have that moment of, okay, what do I do today? The only thing I can relate it to really is like, I mean, I got put on furlough during COVID. Um,
Mm.
I was on furlough for 5 months and then I lost my job. And I had all of this. But I remember waking up on my first morning of furlough, knowing that lockdown was there until roughly sort of beginning of May at that point, and just thinking, what do you mean I've got nothing to do for 2 months? That was the first time in 15, 16 years that I'd
Yeah.
actually sat down and had nothing to do. And I just went, whoa,
Yeah.
this was a bit of a moment. I can
Mm.
imagine it's kind of like that. You're like, what do I do then? Where do
Yeah.
can somebody give me a direction,
Yeah.
to go somewhere?
I remember
It'd be awfully difficult.
texting one of my friends who she's a model, so she kind of has a similar like day in terms of like freelance work. So some days she'll be doing nothing, other days it'll be super busy, like ebbs and flows. And I text her, I was like, "God, I don't know what to do with my day. Like there seems like there's a lot of hours to fill in because I was still looking at the clock thinking, oh, I'd be at training now, and then I'd be napping, and then I'd go back to training, and I'm kind of in the middle of all this, and I don't really know what to do with my time. And she was like, "Don't worry, like you'll figure it out. Like you will figure it out. Like you'll find a way to fill your time." And I was kind of like, "Yeah, you're right, I will." And now it feels like the days go really quick when I'm trying to figure out all my stuff, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, it's already 2 o'clock. What am I doing? I need to do this. I need to do that. I've still got this to do." So it really is about adaptation and adjustment and finding what works for you. And I really like what you said earlier that like things change and your life changes. And it is good to have frequent reflection on, am I in the same place I was last year? No. Is that a good thing? Yes or no? And then figuring out what you want to change, if you want to change anything, and how you can make those changes kind of seamlessly to your life. So swimming, not no longer swimming for me was obviously like a massive change. And it worked seamlessly because I was then able to move in with my fiance and we could finally live together. And I was really happy. And it was kind of like a hard stopping point for my career. So I finished swimming and I literally moved in with him like 2 weeks later. So it was very like my life in Loughborough is like done. And now I can move on with my life and live somewhere else. And I can see Loughborough as that was my swimming place, if that makes sense. So it's very easy to compartmentalize that for myself. It won't always be that easy because things cross over, things change, but it's okay to have like it's okay to change is basically what I'm saying, because I think people go like, oh, you've changed in like a mean or like a way to say that someone's not the person that they once were. But I think that's natural, that's who we are. We're evolutionary beings. It's okay to now I enjoy eating prawns or something like that's obviously very like silly, but you know what I mean, like just a small thing like that, you can accept that I've now grown into a different person. And that might sometimes be good, that might sometimes be bad, but that's why that reflection is needed to make sure you're still being the person that you want to be.
100%. That moving forward bit, it happens every single day. Every single day you're learning something, you're growing in yourself, you're changing your
Mm.
mindset about something. And it's even the most significant changes you probably don't notice 99% of them. But I'm not even the person I was 6 months ago.
Exactly.
So thinking about it from that perspective, how would you expect anybody to be the person they once were?
Yeah.
Because the person they once were was the foundation for who they are now.
Yeah.
So it's
Exactly.
always about just moving forward. But yeah,
Mhm.
everything can change. It's that regular reflection has been so valuable for me and my wife
Mm.
because we both started in such different places, both geographically and and sort of mindset wise and career wise and all this sort of
Mhm.
stuff. We had to find a way to bring our lives together, and that's only happened through regular reflection. And we still do
Yeah.
it to this day because children don't stay the same from one week to the next. So
Yeah.
whatever he needs next is a new challenge for us.
Mm. I love that for you.
I want to talk to you about what you're doing now. You've obviously mentioned
Mm.
the Black Women Association earlier and mentioned sort of what they do. But one of the other things you've invested your time
Mhm.
into is setting up SWYM, which is Swim with Your Meaning. And your vision is simple. We want the world to swim. So tell me more about what SWYM does and the impact you
Mhm.
hope it will make on the world.
Thank you. Yeah. SWYM is my own swimming initiative, and it is basically there to work with communities, work with brands and organizations to bring swimming to them in a way that makes sense for them. So, one thing I've noticed with swimming is it can be very repetitive and stale across kind of the implementation of programs, basically. It's not always catered towards the people who actually need it and the communities that are potentially struggling to get pool time or even just get their own people understanding that they can swim. So it's looking to work with anyone around the world who wants to learn how to swim. And we went to Ghana. We kicked it off in Ghana last year in May, and we paid for 20 people to learn how to swim over 10 weeks. And we provided swimming costumes to them, which were given to us by Nike Swim, and goggles also from Nike Swim, and also swimming hats from Soul Cap. And it was basically to, give these children at the school, these teenagers, this opportunity to learn how to swim. And we had so many applications for this program. We had maybe, I think, well over 100 applications, and I think they only asked like maybe 5 or 6 classes that we could definitely do it because there were holidays and stuff in between. So there was a lot of desire from it. And I remember me reading these applications, and a lot of them were talking about joining their version of the Navy. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is such a great opportunity, getting that opportunity to learn how to swim. And then hopefully that will help them move on to, get a career in the Navy or something like that. And it really is just basically giving people that opportunity, that chance that they might not have had without our help. And we found 2 swimming teachers from Accra who delivered the program for us, and they were brilliant, and they were obviously communicating to the participants in what worked for them. So, if we'd taken a British swimming teacher out there, I just don't think it would have worked. Being honest, it really wouldn't have worked. There is a different cultural barrier in the sense of things are said differently, things are believed differently. There are different ways of um, holding yourself in different societies and different places, different communities. And the assumption that just because you can teach swimming in London doesn't necessarily mean it's going to translate well to the participants' understanding in Accra, in Ghana. And it's really that understanding of swimming that I'm trying to take forward into this, in that we have to work, we have to meet people where they're at, essentially. So they didn't have swimming costumes. We took them swimming costumes. If we turned up and been like, well, where are your swimming costumes? And they would have been like, well, and now we're all stood there like bread and no one's swimming. So it's that real understanding and development that swimming is a life skill, first and foremost, but it needs to be understood in a way that communities can actually participate in it. And we can't just assume that you already have swimming costumes or that the pool is already usable. We have to work with them to make that happen. So we're currently looking for funding for it, and we really had a great time in Ghana. We got some really beautiful footage out of it. We've had some great like testimonials back from the swimmers. We had 95% of them swim 25 meters in their final session. The only participant who didn't had actually been pulled out of the program within the second week when his mum found out that he was swimming. And we asked for parental, we made sure the parents signed off on it. So I don't really know how that happened. But anyway, his mum pulled him out of it because he was scared, she was scared he would drown. And that's another area that we're looking to combat in terms of education and the fact that we're trying to teach people to learn how to swim so they don't drown. And it's a really complex issue that we're seeing around the world, to be honest. And I'm very hopeful that we can get some backing for it so we can start working with more communities and get some education out to make the world a safer place in and around water.
I think that's a wonderful mission. I watched the aquaphobia documentary,
Mm,
and a lot of the sort of myths and biases and stuff that come into, Black and Asian swimmers um sort of area I'd heard before, but
mhm.
didn't necessarily understand like where they were coming from. I knew most of them were complete rubbish, but
Mhm.
but I didn't know why they were rubbish. I just knew they were
Yeah.
rubbish. And but it's amazing, isn't it, how quickly those messages can just spread through communities and go, you know what, you can't swim because of this. And it's such a to somebody who obviously understands the issue and has been educated on the issue could sit there and think, oh, that's ridiculous, you know. But to other people, it's
Mhm.
like, well, no, hang on a second. This
They've
is,
lived experience.
yeah, it's a lived experience, exactly. And passing all those things on from one generation to another without any sort of intervention is what can stop a lot of these things from happening.
Yeah.
So the fact that you're pushing to go out there and go, you know what, let's change this mindset, let's change this education, let's change
Mhm.
this skill set, and actively give people like swimming skills, I think is wonderful. We're fortunate in this country. I don't think we
Yeah.
recognize actually how fortunate we are that no matter where you live, even in the most remote communities, at
Mhm.
best you are 2 hours away from either a seaside or a swimming pool.
Yeah,
you know
it's true.
so it's you don't there's no limit on
Yeah.
access. And I know for a fact, because we use it quite a lot, there's a leisure centre in Leicester that's in the middle
Mhm.
of a quite large Asian community. So most of the people that go there to use it are Asian. So when you recorded Aquaphobia and you sort of talked about Black and Asian swimmers, I was like, I'd never thought about like the Asian community being limited in this, but it's just bringing that to the attention of the people that have those privileges as well. Like me myself, it's, I've had the ability to access swimming all my life. I was fortunate to go to a primary school that had a swimming pool. I was fortunate to go to a secondary school that was down the road from a swimming pool. So we had access to all of this stuff, but bringing that to my attention that actually there's so many people, not just in this country, but in the world, that still don't have access to that stuff, that still think that they can't do it, was shocking to me.
Yeah, yeah, it was. I really enjoyed filming that. It was a really good documentary, some really powerful moments. I mean, getting to talk to Colin Jones, Olympic gold medalist, and hear his story. And in that, he was the black swimmer for me. And that's a whole thing of kind of breaking down these barriers and getting some real representation out there. And it is changing. And this thing, like, there is positivity, it is changing, but it's slow. It is slow, and unfortunately, it can't be snap your fingers. Everyone's got access to pools. Everything's free. We can all go swim, and that we can break down the generational trauma which has been passed on. So it's a long fight. It's what the Black Swimming Association set up to do, and it's what SWYM's set up to do as well. So just working through it however we can, and influencing the areas of change which we can influence.
It was wonderful to read about it, so I'm excited to see what else you do. And I hope
You.
that this podcast comes some way to reaching the person that will eventually, be able to fund you guys and help you do more.
Thank you.
So that'd be wonderful. How do you feel your actions and decisions before retirement from swimming have helped you find direction now?
Massively. I am who I am because of swimming and because of the decisions I made, because of the habits that I formed because of it. And I'm really proud of that fact. I can't imagine my life without swimming. And I don't mean that in a like, it's not a positive or negative thing. It's just who I am. And there's no changing that now, but I am really proud of who I am. So I'm grateful for it, if that makes sense. So everything I kind of hold dear, I've been able to get because of swimming. And, all those decisions that you make along the way, they were all kind of took me along this path to try and be the best athlete that I could be. And I'm grateful that I took those. I'm happy that I rose to the challenge and gave it a go. Looking back on the fact that I'm no longer a competitive swimmer, it's the first time in like 19 years, or like when I retired, 18 years, that I wasn't a competitive swimmer. So I don't really remember my life without it very much. There's obviously a lot I do remember, but as you get older, that kind of everything takes over and swimming just becomes the thing. And I'm grateful for that. As hard as it was and as difficult and as long as it felt, I am grateful for that.
From everything you've said today, it sounds like you've just constantly gone with your gut and just
Yeah,
sort of said, you know what, that's the right way to go, or
let's
this
give
is
it
the
a
right
go.
decision for me. Let's
Yeah.
just try, you know.
Yeah, that's the thing. That was always my thing. I didn't want to finish my career and regret not trying or quitting earlier than I wanted to or being pushed out of it in any way. Like I said, I've always wanted it to be on my terms, and my terms was minimal regret. And I'm happy to say I don't regret anything from my swimming career. There were like bits where I like, oh, I wish I'd tried harder there, or I wish I'd qualified for that team or something like that. But I'm happy with the decisions I made, and I'm at peace with everything, and I'm really proud of what I was able to achieve.
You've said in interviews and stuff before that coming out of the Tokyo Olympics, you had lots of people telling you you've done really well, but actually you were kicking yourself.
Yeah.
And I think I can't make you believe me. Nobody can make you believe me. But I think anybody that's got just the determination to get there in the first place is extraordinary. And to do what is arguably, as you've already said, the hardest Summer Olympics event, because it's not just swimming, it's marathon swimming. To just get to where you've got, people like you have far more impact, I think, than people who consistently win medals. Don't get me wrong, the people that consistently win medals are extraordinarily good, and there's a reason they're consistently
Yeah.
winning. In the same breath, it's, just to get there and to just sort of say, you know what, I can do this, I can be here, I
Mm,
can be present, and I can say that I'm an Olympian is extraordinary. And it just showcases who you are at your core,
thank
that
you.
actually you did do exceptionally well. And I hope, if you haven't already, that one day you do accept that about
Yeah.
yourself. Because, I mean, I was sat there watching you, just going, oh my God, go on, yes, come on.
Oh,
I remember that. I remember watching you because I suddenly, we were connected on LinkedIn before you went to Tokyo,
yes.
you even qualified for Tokyo. And then I saw you on the TV and I went, oh my God, okay. You know, I was like, oh, it's Alice. So yeah, so I was cheering you
Oh,
on, and I was, everybody was driving for you, and we are big swimming fans in this house. Watching the swimming events was always a big thing anyway. But just to watch you do what you did, and to just say, you know what, I'm gonna give this my damnedest, and it might not be my best ever performance, but you know what, I'm
mm,
gonna finish it. I'm gonna finish it. That in itself was extraordinary. So I hope, if you haven't already, that one day you come to accept that you are extraordinary.
yeah, I'm coming round to it. It's obviously getting out of the race, I was like heartbroken. Took me a good time to get over it, to be honest. And yeah, I'm coming around to it definitely. One of the things I've said is that I wish I'd been kinder to myself after Tokyo, because I was really, every athlete is their own biggest critic, especially for Olympians. Works at any level like that, but especially for Olympians when you obviously have invested so much time and effort into it that nothing ever feels good enough sometimes. And I was obviously very disappointed with that performance. So, but yeah, it's kind of is what it is. It's still got there, and that was the one thing. Never really thought I could achieve that or could get to an Olympic Games. So to get there was obviously career defining for me.
What do you hope will be the lasting impact that you make on the world?
So I suppose aside from swimming, like specific swimming thing, I just want people to know that they are capable of trying new things and growing and evolving themselves. Just because you have been told you are X doesn't mean you can't do Y or Z, if that makes sense. Like you can find other parts of your personality and nurture those. You can try new things, you can fail, and failure is fine. We've all got to fail. That's the only way you can grow and succeed and become better at whatever that thing may be. So I'd like my lasting impact to be people trusting that they can try something new and give it a go.
Alice, you're dedicating so much of your time and energy to supporting others in developing their own beliefs in their capabilities. You're challenging existing norms, and now that you're retired from swimming, you're exploring new directions for your own career. If people wanted to talk to you more about SWYM or the Black Swimming Association or anything else you're involved in, or just connect with you in some way, where can they find you?
Yes, come and find me on LinkedIn. That's always probably the best place to message me. I'm always a bit wishy-washy with Instagram messages, not gonna lie. But LinkedIn or Instagram, and my agent's information is also out there as well if you want to get in contact with us for anything. But yeah, thank you.
Amazing. So I'll put all the links in that you've just mentioned in the description for this episode. It has been
Thank you.
a tremendous experience speaking with you today. To watch how your career in swimming has developed and then to see your next moves come to life as well is inspirational. And I have no doubt that the impact that you're making will continue to reach far and wide across the sporting world and beyond. I hope you've enjoyed being a guest on the
It's
podcast.
been really nice. Thank you. They're great questions. Thank you.
You're most welcome. It's been an insightful and empowering conversation. Thank you so much for being here. Until next time, everyone.